So this machine makes all the cones for like elite cranks, for bottom brackets. Um, it makes washers. So this thing does a lot of all the little bits and pieces that we have, for the hub cones, for the bottom bracket cone spacers, bottom bracket cups, um, the little aluminum washers for the 3/8 to 14 mil bolts, things like that. So that's what this machine specifically does. So this machine makes all the bolts that we have. So our hub bolts, 3/8 to 14 mil bolts. Here's a little shot of what we do make. Some prototype bolts that we've made, 20 mil hub bolts that we've made, uh, the nuts for the 14 mil, some lightning bolts. Right now it's making these guys right here. These are spider bolts bosses. So what you'll find on the end of the crank on the right-hand drive, that's what it's making now. So if you look down, you'll see some coming out of the conveyor right here. There's one there, there's one there. So this is one of our oldest machines, and right now this one is doing all the cutouts for the elite cranks. So the elite cranks come in and they're basically round tubing, and then we take it and we put it in a swedger and we elongate it like this, and then we smash it down, give it that oval look. Then we take it from that machine, and then we really kind of start to take shape on how the elite crank's going to look. So when we swedge it, the machine actually turns it into a point here, but we don't lose any of the wall thickness. You can tell the wall thickness is exactly the same on the part that we swedged, and on the back side that was original. So then from this point, we'll take it and we'll put it in this machine here, and what it's doing in here is it's cutting out where the spindle boss is going to go. So, and a lot of people don't realize, underneath the triangle of the on the crank arm, there's a triangle there that this is all cut out. So we're not actually adding weight or anything. So we didn't take any weight away, but we didn't add any weight. And then it'll cut in for the pedal boss, and it'll also engrave what size it's going to be. So this will be the elite crank when it's finished. So let's check out the next machine. This is doing gears. So the real interesting part about this machine is that, and maybe he's kind of caught a glimpse of Shane before he shut the door, but he can actually load the plates on one side of this machine, and if we go around this way, this machine's on a big turntable, so it'll turn in, and it's working on the imperial gears right there. It's working on cutting them out right now. So we really don't have to stop production on this machine at all. We can keep running, and having it automated like it is, it definitely makes it a lot nicer to work on. So I can come over here, I can open the door, and right now we're getting ready to do the second process for this one. Whereas on the other side of it, it's already starting to cut it out, put the teeth in. It's going to take its shape so it looks just like this when it's all done. So little imperial gears. So that table will spin around and it'll start cutting. So that's the imperial gear material. So all those little plates inside there will be cut out of this. Over here we have a tumbler. So right now what it's doing is taking all the rough edges off of the spindle boss here. So after they come out of the machine, it gets all the little burrs and stuff off, and you just dump them in there, and you basically lower this handle, and it acts like a conveyor belt, and all the little parts will come out on top. So on this machine here, what we're doing is we do the drivers. We put the springs in the pawl pockets in the back of the driver. The driver's done down on another machine down the line, but we can do the driver from start to finish. We could do all of this on the lathe, and we can also put the pawl pockets in, but it takes so much longer to do one piece at a time, where if we just mill out this part here on the lathe down the road there, I'll show you that machine in a minute, and we can put 8 of these in here at one time, and they'll go 8 in there, and it'll put the springs in the pawl pockets in it, at once. And we can also, on this machine, we can do 3 spindles at a time, which it'll put the threads in for the crank bolts. Right now, I think Shane is making brake adapters. So he's making the 15 mil AC2 brake adapter, which will look like this. This is where it starts at. And then this is kind of like 3/4 of the way done here. Then it'll go off and it'll part it off. But we've also found a way to use the same adapter for the Elite hub. So not only do we offer this now for the AC2, but we also offer a brake adapter for the Elite hub as well. So it's really cool. So if we go, we'll walk over here, we'll check out where the stems are made. So this is stem material here. Comes in little blocks, so it all gets machined away, as you can tell. And then you can see where right now it's making push stems. So there's the finished part of the push stem there. They'll come out, and the machine will actually finish it off, and it looks like that. And that's coming straight out of the machine. It hasn't even been put in the tumbler yet. So once it comes out of the machine, we can either ride it, we can anodize it, powder coat it, we can do whatever we want, but it's ready to go. So that's really cool once it comes out of the machine. So on this side, I believe we're doing ratchet rings for the Elite hub. This is one of our newest machines here. This is probably only about a year old. And what we'll do is we make the ratchet rings like this, and it has all the teeth in it. So right now it's not really sure if it's left-hand drive or right-hand drive. Depends on when we put it in the machine. And so we found that before we send them out to get hardened, because it's made out of S7 tool steel, but we'll send it out to get rehardened and black anodized, oxided. That it's easier to put the threads on it to thread into the body of the hub. So that's what it's doing now. You can kind of take a look inside if you want. So here is a finished piece here, comes out, and it's basically ready to use as well. So we can just thread this right into a hub and go pedal. On this machine here, we're making the drivers. This particular driver we're making is for the Elite hub. It's the aluminum Elite driver, and it comes out, and you guys can see here it doesn't have the springs and pawl pockets in it, but otherwise it's ready. I mean, it can be loaded with bearings, and everything will fit real nice. It's got a cog, so there's never any issues of making sure it fits good. So that's what this machine's making now. You guys can catch a glimpse of that. It's pretty cool too when it's working. So they'll all come out on the conveyor.
This is Dave Fisher at Profile Racing. Today we are making the Elite Mountain Bike Single Speed Hub 32 hole. It's made out of 2 3/4 round 2024 aluminum. It takes 6.5 minutes to produce. There are roughly 8 processes to produce this hub. We face it, we drill it, we bore it, we burnish it, we thread it for the ratchet ring, we profile that center section, we drill for the spoke holes, and we deburr the spoke holes. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Oh, just for added sake, on the back side of this machine, this is the hub machine from the back side. So this is the raw material here. We could load this hopper up, if you will, with all the material, and it'll just feed it itself until it runs out of material, or a bit breaks, or a bit gets dull. He's got all these parameters loaded into the machine so that we actually don't ruin parts. But it'll run 24 hours a day if he lets it. It's pretty wild. Where a lot of times this Eurotech is only making axles. So it'll make like hub axles, front mini axle, Elite axles, rear GDH axles, rear aluminum, rear Elite, mountain bike. That's all this one really is done for. So you can tell here, so the hopper runs this way on this machine. You can see where it already kind of spit out one of the axles here. This is a mini hub or an Elite hub front axle. So this one right now is making aluminum sliders for the crank tools. These are either Elite or call them crank tool sliders. Yeah, they were chromoly. We decided to go aluminum on some of them. Just make for a faster pace to build it. You don't have to send it out, get hardened. It doesn't really get damaged too well. when you're installing cranks. So no need to put the other 3 processes involved. So we decided to go aluminum. But that's what this one's doing today. It's making crank sliders, and otherwise it'll be probably turned back over to make crank tools, and it'll also do axles as well. And so on this machine, this one's pretty wild. This one does the crank axle, the 48 spline crank axle, and it's pretty wild to watch the splines get put on, because it's actually called hobbing. And when it hobs, it spins. So as it spins, it creates the splines. So you wouldn't think that as it's going around, making the splines elongated, but it does. It's pretty wild to check it out. So this is basically what this machine's going to do today. So it puts these splines on here. So it'll mill the whole thing out. This happens to be titanium, so it'll mill it all the way out, and then put the splines on it, and then it'll go back down to where we were doing the pawl pockets on that machine, and it'll get drilled and tapped for it then. The next one is one of our new machines. It's a small one, but it's an automated cutter, like a saw. So this one's pretty cool. Unfortunately, there's nothing loaded in it right now, but typically you'd load it in from the backside, and you get it kind of where you want it to be. There's a program for everything that we're cutting. So, because when we're doing stem material, it comes in like 8-foot lengths, and we have to cut it into the little blocks in order to do the stem. So we come around this side here, and you can actually program this machine to feed the bar stock through and cut. So it'll cut it. It's just a big bandsaw that's automated, and it'll cut the bar stock, and then when it's done, it'll push it out as the other one gets loaded into the correct measurement, and it'll start cutting automatically there. So this has really kind of cut our time down quite a bit, because we used to have to do it by hand in more of a, I guess, elementary way of loading it in, tightening it down, and then bringing the bandsaw down by hand, which took a lot of time to do. And that's pretty much it here in the machine shop. I mean, we have some little things, band saws, our polishing wheels out back. For those guys that love polished hubs, we do it by hand, and it's not the most glorified job, but it's kind of fun to watch it start to polish up and get that mirror finish. So there's a little bit of fun involved. So who can do the best polishing? So we're gonna venture out this way and go check out where the hubs are made, and see all the little bits when they're finished after they come out of the machine shop. So this is the rig here. So we got our own big rig for when we want to go racing. So I've been trying to get the keys to this thing for 14 years, and someday I'm gonna get the keys to this guy. And me and John are gonna have a blast on this going to the races. So this is the packaging area here. Shane handles all the ECI orders and takes care of all the distributions for Profile. So everything gets packaged here, and then the shipping department and so on. Yep, kind of like a big conveyor, goes straight on down. And then we have some little odds and ends spots here that we do. Like we try to keep it made in America, so we sew our own patches on. We have made here in the States, and the hats and things like that. So we do a lot of sewing here. I don't sew, but
who does the sewing?
Justine does all the sewing. That's Jim's daughter, and so she'll do the patches, and we'll get the patches in, and she'll sew them right to the hats. So the hat like you have on today is is hand sewn here. So we try to keep it made in the USA as far as that's concerned. Sometimes it's hard to, especially with t-shirts and soft goods, to have everything made in the USA. But that's probably about the one thing that we don't have control over. But we do have control over the patches. Yeah. So Randall Neve, which is an old racer out of Florida, him and his wife have an embroidery company. And so we buy our patches from them, and they're stationed out in Florida here in Sanford, I think, on the other side. But let's go check out where we build the hubs. There's some cool stuff before we get in there, though. some frames, some old frames that we have. That's a little Champ Pro on there. The other one's the Shelby James. And then there's an X-File up there. There's a Freestyler, a Brewmaid. I don't know if you guys can get a glimpse of the second one in with the tail section facing the camera. That's a Hutch. Some rockets. We had profile rocket for a while.
So there was profile frames and rocket profile frames.
Yeah. So
from South America?
yeah, they were made in, I think, Brazil. Jim would know that. But I think, so Jim and Bill Prince was out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, had started Rocket and then got with Jim, and you know, that became Rocket, profile Rocket. Upstairs we keep all the soft goods, things like that. But in here is where all the hub magic happens. These are all 28 holes in this one here, but some nice little matte black one. Still have some Madeira hubs. The 1011 speed hub. So this is basically the mountain bike 1011 speed hub, which also converts to the Elite BMX disc hub. Then over here is kind of where the AC2s are. This is our welding station. That's where Jim welds all the cranks. So right now he's doing some tack work here on the Elite badges.
So what size are those ones?
These will be 175s. So they are in production, people. So yeah, so he's going to tack this on and then get that ready for the bosses to be put on in the triangles. So there's a bunch of finished ones here already tacked on. So you'll see it. So he'll tack them on and I'll go back and he'll weld everything together. But this is a painstaking thing here that he does as well. So Jim,
stamped?
It is stamped. So Jim stamps it, and then he actually, I think, made a die that he cuts all these out to the exact same size. This little antique roller, and he rolls each one of those by hand to get that perfect curvature that he needs to weld them to the crank arm. So every one of those little triangle things, man, it's painstaking, I'm telling you. It's a laser etch machine here. So this machine here is a wire EDM machine. And what this one does is it cuts out all the pawls.